The Democrats have come up with a new term, constitutional crisis. You know, during the election season, their term was threat to our democracy. That didn't work for him too well, did it? And now it's constitutional crisis, that there is a constitutional crisis occurring in the United States. And I agree with them. But it's not Donald Trump trying to implement the policies that he ran on and that the people elected him to implement. It's a group of activist judges who are cherry-picked by these people who have filed these lawsuits seeking injunctions, who are granting injunctions against the Trump administration for administering. Now, as you know from your 8th grade civics class, we have 3 co-equal branches of government. We have the legislative, we have the executive, and we have the judicial branch. They're co-powerful. In other words, one's not more powerful than the other. But what is happening here is an unlawful activist judge in different parts of the country they are issuing these injunctions unlawfully. They're not following the Supreme Court precedent in issuing these injunctions. So let me take you to law school for a minute. There are 4 elements, all of which have to be present in order for an injunction to issue. The first, the person or entity seeking the injunction must be able to prove that it has a high likelihood of success on the merits of a case. That's number 1. Now, backing up, they also have to have standing, meaning they have to have a legal reason to be in the court. I couldn't raise a suit for somebody else. In other words, I wouldn't have standing. Only the person who would be harmed or entity that would be harmed has standing. So first, likelihood of success on the merits. Second element, the entity or person seeking the injunction must show that the harm they're seeking to avoid is irreparable and immediate, not some potential future harm. Immediate and irreparable. What does that mean? What that means is that money damages aren't available. Money damages are available, then no injunction. So let's take it, for instance, the workers, federal workers that President Trump ordered either come back to the office, take a buyout. They could sue in court, and if they won, could get money damages. You see? So it is, and the harm is not irreparable in that case. So the second element they have to meet is the immediate irreparable harm. The third element is that the equities have to weigh in favor of the party seeking the injunction as opposed to the party against whom the injunction is sought. Now, what this means in everyday terms is that the person seeking the injunction would get more good than the harm would fall to the person against whom it's being sought. And the fourth element that must be present is that the issuance of the injunction must weigh in favor of the public interest. Now, if any one of these 4 is not present, there's no injunction. And I would argue that the two major ones, likelihood of success, irreparable harm, aren't present in any of these. And so the constitutional crisis is these judges are creating a 4th branch of government called the judicial executive branch. We cannot have that. This has to be remedied. It has to be stopped. And I smell a big smackdown coming from the Supreme Court, but we got to get the cases up there. I remember Andrew Jackson one time to Supreme Court Justice Marshall said, "That's a fine opinion, Justice Marshall. Well, I want to see you get your army and enforce it." I kind of wish Trump would do that. But he said yesterday that he's going to follow the law and they're going to appeal. So I hope they get it going quickly. I have 2 clips from Fox News I want you to watch. And then I want you to tell us what you think about this in the comments.
Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law, and they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts: 77 million Americans voted to elect this president, and each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted.
Kayleigh McEnany, Guy Benson are here with more.
Morning.
Yeah, so here are Cory Booker and Andy Kim. They were on the Sunday shows. This was them talking about how they want to resist.
The strategy is to do whatever we can to stop Donald Trump from hurting Americans, from making us less safe, less secure, and from raising our costs.
You are open to voting yes to shut down the government, to make this point.
This is on them. We are at a point where we are basically on the cusp of a constitutional crisis, seeing this administration taking steps that are so clearly illegal. And until we see a change in that behavior, we should not allow and condone that, nor should we assist in that.
And NBC News has this headline, Kayleigh: "We are figuring it out. Democrats struggle to keep up with Trump's dizzying pace." They don't know where to look.
I bet they are, because Trump has done more executive orders in 10 days than most presidents, I think, if not all, have done in 100 years. So that is a dizzying pace. But Andy Kim, he went on to say, we're on the cusp of a constitutional crisis. That's the new buzzword, because I heard Chris Murphy say it's a constitutional crisis.
Oh, so the bat signal's gone out.
Yes, it's as if they've not learned that the existential rhetoric did not work. The threat to democracy, not to mention we have sound that we could pull up at any moment from December of Hakeem Jeffries talking about government shutdowns hurting working people and those affected by hurricanes. What happened to that logic? It's out the window 60 days later.
Speaking of logic, James Carville has another twister here. All right, just go ahead and play this with his unique idea right now inside the party.
And it's like there's a plant somewhere in, quote, progressive, unquote, America that just sees how many stupid things that they can embrace. It's stunningly stupid. Both of them.
I actually would have liked to have seen that on camera. It is stunningly stupid when the greater majority of Americans, they got to balance their own budget. And they're telling Washington, go ahead and do it as well. And now they're giving us try. And the Democrats, like Andy Kim and others, are saying, you keep doing that, we're going to shut this place down.
One of the buzzwords, as we just said, is constitutional crisis. They're leaning into that. Another phrase that we're hearing and an argument repeatedly from the Democrats is no one elected Elon Musk or his team. And I just don't understand, from the party that has fully supported to the hilt every federal bureaucrat forever, who are unelected, faceless people who make all sorts of decisions with our money and have forever, for decades. Now one person who's unelected making some recommendations with a team and trying to find efficiencies to reduce the size of government and the scope of government. That's the crisis. And who elected them? That logic, that argument could be easily applied to the bureaucratic state that they are defending, possibly with a government shutdown. And I haven't heard them grapple with that hypocrisy at all. No one's asked them. I wonder if there'll be any pushback from many of our colleagues in the media. So far, not so much, which isn't exactly a surprise.
I read this morning, Kayleigh, in this Substack, The Liberal Patriot, and they're pretty moderate Democrats saying, perhaps going after Elon Musk all the time is not the best bet. Here's a call for 5 here, guys. These are voters to ABC and how they support Musk and Trump.
It's pretty characteristic of Elon Musk. And I think that, the whole idea of coming in and looking at government efficiency was going to be very disruptive by design. Immigration was a top concern, safety and security. It was one of the things that swayed me. So I'm glad to see bold action because I think it's needed.
I'm not entirely certain that he's going about it the right way. I do think that what he is setting out to do needs to be done.
So it's like getting the same goal may not be the right way to do it. Who knows? We'll see. But they like what they're seeing.
They like what they're seeing because he's not touching Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. He's not touching the big three that really affect all Americans. He's finding common sense items like the penny. I mean, who would have thought that we're watching the Super Bowl and Trump says, I've instructed the Treasury Secretary not to keep producing the penny because it costs 2 cents to produce it. These are common sense things most Americans think about and think, oh, okay, if you're going to cut that waste, let's do it. Can it be disruptive? Sure. That's why with USAID, for instance, preserving PEPFAR funding and whatnot is very important. But he's disrupting the system, fixing the problems with Band-Aids along the way.
So I told Brett last night that Department of Education will be next, Pentagon will be next. And he's convinced that you're going to find millions of dollars, if not more than that, inside of those departments as well. In the end, if this works, Guy, we could look back on this moment as saying, you made our government better.
Yeah.
And that'd be a good thing.
Especially in some of the low-hanging fruit. And I think it would be definitely in the billions, at the least, that you would save in a lot of these gigantic, unaccountable bureaucratic agencies. And look, the idea that there's no oversight whatsoever, no, there's congressional oversight. The judges are already fielding the lawsuits, right? The judicial side of the government, that element will also look at this. So I think the way the Democrats are talking about it, like Elon Musk has this band of unaccountable people that got torches and they're storming the castle and just, you know, burning everything to the ground. It's not actually what's happening. It feels like the Democrats are casting about for something to coalesce around to find a purpose again. And they've chosen this. They've chosen defending federal bureaucrats and illegal immigrants, which are some interesting priorities that they've settled on. Maybe they could have waited for a better one, but here we are.
Maybe Carville's right.